Racing Reinvented. That simple, intriguing alliteration was the slogan of Test Drive Unlimited, an open-world racing game that lived up to its car-focused catchphrase with a novel concept. Combine the large-scale social experience of an MMO with the automotive adrenaline rush of a driving game. Described as massively open online racing by developer Eden Games and publisher Atari, this online focus allowed Test Drive Unlimited to transcend the offline conventions of the 2006 gaming landscape and redefine what a racing game could be. 15 years later, and after spiritual successors like The Crew and Forza Horizon have shown the true potential of online driving games, developer KT Racing is set to bring the franchise that started it all back to life with Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. However, while the brand new installment in the Test Drive Unlimited series is something we absolutely want, the circumstances surrounding Solar Crown give us cause for concern. With that in mind, here are 5 reasons we are worried about Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. Ideally, a video game trailer is a window into the world of the title it advertises, providing a tantalizing taste that both entices the viewer and eases the insufferable wait for the game's eventual release. Generally speaking, using gameplay and in-engine footage that highlights the game's features is the best way of achieving that goal, as it provides players with a good reason to look forward to the game. After all, a gameplay trailer consists of footage from the actual game, and is therefore a far more accurate representation of that game than a pre-rendered trailer. It is for this reason that we are concerned about Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. Unlike many of its competitors that have relied heavily on gameplay and in-engine footage for their advertising, Solar Crown's trailers have yet to reveal any gameplay at all, instead relying exclusively on pre-rendered footage. While pre-rendered footage can accurately convey the feeling of a game, as was the case for Dishonored, this scenario is the exception as opposed to the rule, and more often than not, favoring pre-rendered footage over gameplay is a sign that the publisher is trying to hide something. In this regard, Solar Crown's trailers are particularly worrying, as both trailers are incredibly brief and consist of footage that at most make vague and non-committal suggestions as to what the final game might feel like to play. Even worse, what little information can be gleaned from these trailers might turn out to be bald-faced lies. In the second trailer, we see a selection of keys from a variety of different manufacturers, including Ferrari and Lamborghini, before watching an Aston Martin DB11 and a Range Rover racing out of a parking lot. In a gameplay trailer, this footage would be reliable. In a pre-rendered trailer, it's potentially deceitful. This is because content shown in pre-rendered footage is not guaranteed to appear in the final game, and Forza Motorsport 2 demonstrated this fact with a pre-rendered trailer featuring a BMW M6 that wouldn't appear until after the release of the game's sequel. Hopefully this won't be the case for Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, but until actual gameplay or information on the game's content and features confirm the trailer's implications, hoping for the best is all we can really do. Like the gunplay in a first-person shooter, the driving physics in an automotive racing game represent the core of the entire player experience. Given this significance, whether or not the driving physics succeed is often the make or break moment for a racing game, and many have lived and died on this foundational aspect of the genre. Test Drive Unlimited was no different. Unlike its 2006 contemporaries that emphasized NOS boosts and arcade cabinet physics, Test Drive Unlimited brought a unique and surprisingly sim-like approach to automotive handling that remains both challenging and rewarding to this day. However, while the core driving experience was fun, it was undeniably rough around the edges. Perhaps the best way of describing it is sim handling with the anti-aliasing turned off. Unlike more overtly realistic racers like Gran Turismo and Forza Motorsport, where inputs on the gamepad are smooth and the loss of grip occurs over a gradient, Test Drive Unlimited feels far more twitchy, with slides seemingly occurring based upon a finite amount of preset grip values. Compounding this is how the terrain itself sometimes feels jagged to drive over, consisting of supposedly smooth undulations that feel almost angular during normal gameplay. Ultimately, the overall driving experience remains fun, but it's undeniably clunky. With this in mind, one might understandably think that Test Drive Unlimited 2 would take this handling model and smooth out this jag to make it truly great. It would have been nice if that had happened. Instead, developer Eden Games opted to create a new driving model for the game. one that was so poorly received by both critics and players that the PC version needed fan-made mods to make it bearable. All of this makes us nervous for Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, a sequel in a franchise whose driving model has been clunky at best and insufferable at worst. That said, our anxiety about the handling has diminished considerably knowing that developer KT Racing is both figuratively and literally taking the wheel. As the creative team behind the well-received World Rally Championship Series, KT has a deep understanding of grip, momentum, and driving surfaces, making them an ideal team to bring the best out of Solar Crown. Here's hoping that they can successfully apply their experience and, in doing so, correct course on this discouraging driving trend in the series. When it comes to purchasing a car, most racing games treat the activity as an uninteresting formality. From Need for Speed to Gran Turismo, the process of buying a new set of wheels is often little more than entering a menu and clicking the Buy button while the car in question spins around like it's on an infomercial. In stark contrast, buying a car in Test Drive Unlimited isn't tedium, it's an event. The player enters a literal automotive showroom where they can walk around a collection of cars from a specific manufacturer, all the while opening doors and revving engines. After taking the car for a test drive around the block, the player is not only able to select the color of their new car, but can also choose from a selection of rim styles and interior options. In Test Drive Unlimited, buying a supercar, a process typically relegated to a glorified menu in other games, is given the same sort of ceremony as doing so in the real world. Unfortunately, the same thing cannot be said about the upgrade system. While other series will allow everything from camber adjustments to drivetrain swaps, upgrading an automobile in Test Drive Unlimited is essentially relegated to clicking a button, completely precluding the player's ability to meaningfully customize their cars. This franchise precedent makes us particularly concerned for Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, which at the time of recording has yet to reveal any gameplay at all, much less customization gameplay. Omitting upgrade options may have been permissible in 2006 when deep car customization was still relatively rare, but today, these kinds of deficiencies in a racing game are egregious, especially in a game like Solar Crown. Here's hoping the developers will focus less on playing poker and more on poking around the engine instead. On that note, if there's one aspect of Test Drive Unlimited that made it unique aside from its online focus, it was the game's theme of automotive luxury. Both Test Drive Unlimited and its sequel were made to allow players to indulge in the DuPont Registry fantasy of being a playboy racer with a massive garage full of expensive supercars. However, while the first game's vision of an affluent automotive lifestyle was relatively restrained in its portrayal of such an opulent existence, its sequel decided instead to lean in, resulting in stereotypical portrayals of arrogant, entitled rich people that forcibly pulled the focus away from the cars.
Bring on the fresh meat. I'm in the mood to humiliate someone new.
This emphasis on trust fund cliches is exacerbated by dialogue that can be charitably described as cringe-inducingly awful. As put by deceased review outlet Game Trailers, the cheesy cutscenes and snobbish personalities certainly don't make you envy this life of luxury.
That car sucked big time. I'm gonna ask Dad to buy me a new one.
As excruciating as listening to the grating lines of venture capitalists was in 2011, it's an even more unbearable experience today, and it's for that reason that we are dreading Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. While we can rest assured that the gameplay front is in good hands, the trailers for Solar Crown released so far put special emphasis on the same sort of insufferable snobs that, among other massive flaws, made Test Drive Unlimited 2 such a drag to play. At the risk of getting #too political, in the aftermath of a global pandemic where a handful of incomprehensibly wealthy people collectively made trillions while millions of people in the United States alone face homelessness, maybe a trailer showing somebody so disgustingly rich that they can casually bet their 24-karat gold-plated Range Rover on a game of poker without a second thought is, if nothing else, a bad look. Hopefully publisher Nacon will realize just how out of touch this kind of interpretation of Test Drive Unlimited really is well before Solar Crown's release. But for now, it looks like we're going to have to force ourselves to be excited for a racing game that thinks poor people just need to stop eating avocado toast to get out of poverty.
I am gonna break you!
In In the process of creating this video, we stumbled upon a recent Kotaku article by Adam Ismail discussing Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown and reflecting on the past games in the series. The article itself provides some good background on the franchise and is actually pretty funny in many places, but there was one particular aspect of the article that stuck out. Ismail describes the first Test Drive Unlimited as an early example of an always online game. As stated at the beginning of this video, it's certainly true that Test Drive Unlimited paved the way for online racing games, but it was not always online. With the exception of a few in-game achievements and social features tethered to the online server, the overwhelming majority of Test Drive Unlimited, including hundreds of different challenges, the complete car roster, and the entirety of the Hawaiian island of Oahu, was accessible in-game without ever having to connect to the internet. However, while Test Drive Unlimited wasn't an always online game, the fact that it was mistaken for one exposes an unsettling possibility for Solar Crown. In stark contrast to when the first Test Drive Unlimited was released, where playing online remained an uncommon novelty, today, playing online is an all-too-common, artificially imposed necessity. Many open-world racing franchises, including The Crew and Need for Speed, have released games that force the player to maintain a constant internet connection just to play, and considering Test Drive Unlimited's reputation as the original online open-world racer, it's depressingly believable that publisher Nacon will follow in the footsteps of its contemporaries and hold the entirety of Solar Crown hostage behind a server connection. While the game's Wikipedia page assures us that Solar Crown will have a single-player mode, none of the references cited on the page back up that assertion. Even if this assertion turns out to be true, recent gaming history has shown that a single-player mode doesn't prevent publishers from forcing unnecessary online requirements into a game anyway. The fact that publisher Nacon and developer KT Racing's prior work on the World Rally Championship Series didn't require constant internet connection is an encouraging sign, but until the final game is in our hands, we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed that Solar Crown will value RPM over DRM. Well, that about covers it. Those are the 5 reasons we're worried about Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. Have your own concerns about the new TDU? Maybe you have good reason to be excited for the game. Either way, we'd love to hear about it in the comments, drop us a like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more videos like this one from the classiest cavern on the World Wide Web.